Hi, everybody, and welcome to another We Are Mission podcast, a podcast of Missio Scotland. I am Gerard Goff, the Communications Officer, and I am delighted today to be joined by Father Gabriel Onoyima. Hope I've got that right, Father
Yeah,
Gabriel.
you're right. Yeah.
So, Father, can you just tell us a wee bit about your background for people who might not know?
As you've heard, my name is Gabriel Onoyima. I come from Nigeria. I did my school in Nigeria, primary, secondary, seminary training, and then after the seminary training, got ordained. And as a Spiritan missionary, I was posted to South Africa for my first mission.
Okay, so if we go back to the growing up in, was it Enugu State, is that right?
Yes, I'm originally from Enugu State.
So what is that like as a place? What's it like to grow up in Enugu State?
Enugu State is one of the peaceful states in Nigeria where people are free to practice actually their religion. We are not tormented, if I use that word, by some people who don't believe that Christians should exist. So we have freedom of religion and relative peace in Enugu State.
And what's it like in terms of, is it quite agricultural, is it rural, or what's the kind of main work in the area sort of thing?
It's more of agricultural area, though you may have some office work, but majority of people are subsistent farmers.
Okay, fantastic. And what was family life like? Do you come from quite a big family?
I come from a not big family. I have 2 brothers and a sister, and then my parents are there. So it's not a big family. And my father is the only son from his mother's side. His father married 2 wives, polygamy in Africa before Christianity. And then the other wife of my granddad got 2 children, a man and a woman, though both of them have died now. Yes.
And what did mom and dad do for a living?
My mom has been a farmer, not like industrial farmer, but just subsistent. And then my father has been so active in the church as a catechist,
Okay.
because in our own system, catechist is like a full-time job, and that's what he was doing until he retired, I think sometime in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Okay. And what about your siblings? What do they do?
My younger sister is a nun. At the moment, she stays in Germany.
Right.
She works in Germany and then studies in Germany also. And then the younger brother is married and he stays in Lagos, Nigeria. He is a building contractor.
Okay.
He's doing well in his own. Then the last born, the boy, is also in Ghana with his wife doing business. Yes.
So a son becomes a priest,
Yep.
a daughter becomes a nun. So it stands to reason that obviously your faith played a big part, I would guess, in family life.
Yes, our faith played a very significant part, and I strongly believe that that faith was built by our parents because they are very religious, very honest in whatever they are doing, and they brought us up that way. Like when we are growing up, we go for morning mass almost every day, and every morning we pray. Before going to bed, we pray. So that may have been some kind of foundation laid which made us, myself and my younger sister, to have picked up from there and then chose our life pattern. Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, so before you actually we get to your vocation, when you were at school, what sort of things did you like to do? What sort of subjects were you interested in?
When I was in school, I was doing what we call arts then, not science. We were doing political science, subject that relates to, actually, if I didn't become a priest, I was intending to become a lawyer.
Right.
So I was moving towards those subjects that will lead me to be a lawyer. But the vocation of priesthood, I believe that it was stronger, and then I chose this life. Yeah.
No problem. In terms of like considering being a lawyer, what attracted you to that initially?
I felt that some people are not really treated rightly. So I was feeling that if I'm a lawyer, I'll be able to defend those who are unjustly punished in the society. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so your vocation. What, who or what was the catalyst for you deciding to take up your vocation? Was there anyone who was a major influence? Obviously, you've mentioned the kind of faith bedrock that your mum and dad have gave you, but was there anybody in particular that maybe helped you discern it?
I don't really think that if there's anybody who really influenced me, it will be the type of life we live in my family. You know, being so conscious of praying and also attending mass every day. And my house was very close to the seminary. So we used to go for morning mass there, and I see the seminarians and also do interact with some of them sometimes, though as a small boy then. And I found some kind of joy in what they do. And I think from there, but no particular person, if I would say.
So nobody in particular, but maybe the environment.
I think the environment played
Yeah.
more significant role than individual, a particular individual.
Yeah. Okay. So you decide to take up your vocation. Was there anything that was surprising to you when you started?
Maybe I don't get that very well. Surprising in what aspect?
Just in terms of, was there things that maybe you found a bit uncomfortable, or was there things that you thought you might find uncomfortable, but you actually excelled at? You know, anything in particular that was maybe a bit of a surprise to you?
Well, I would say the surprises came as when I've become a priest already, moving away from my culture into a different culture, and then seeing how people also worship. I was a little bit, if I use the word shocked, yes, but I was warned, I was told that you are going to meet different ways of worship, different cultures, and you don't need to be over shocked. They talk about cultural shock. Yeah, that's the only thing I would say that has really surprised me in terms of when I left my country to another place for
Yeah.
ministry.
So when you were a wee bit deeper into your
Yeah.
priesthood sort of thing.
Yes.
Just in terms of, you spoke about becoming a priest and stuff like that. You chose to join the Spiritans, is that correct?
Yes.
Why did you choose to join the Spiritans as opposed to just being I guess a parish priest in Nigeria itself?
That's why I say that my environment may have played a very great role in my choice of life, in the sense that I lived very close to the seminary, the Spiritan seminary, and I do interact with some of them, and they talk about missionaries going to other places apart from your own locality. So, when they tell the stories about other cultures, I became interested in moving out of my comfort zone to go and experience what other people experience. So that may have influenced my thought of becoming a Spiritan, going out to other people to also share what they do
Yeah.
in terms of faith.
I mean, in terms of the actual term vocation, a lot of people ask this question to have got different kind of interpretations around about the same thing, a lot of things. But for you, what does vocation mean in its broader sense?
In a broader sense, I would think that vocation is following the footsteps of Jesus. So I don't limit vocation to priesthood or to religious life, because there are other areas of life which God called people to. There are people he called to become priests. There are people called to become nuns. There are people called to become medical doctors, lawyers, and also called to family life. Yeah. So vocation is all about being a representative of Jesus wherever you find yourself. And I believe that that's vocation.
Excellent. In terms of, you mentioned when you were into your priesthood a wee bit, that things were a wee bit of a culture shock. When things are like that, where do you tend to draw strength from?
I tend to draw my strength back again to the teachings I got during my seminary days, which made me to realize that there is no perfect culture. And every culture is good as long as it serves the people.
Mm-hmm.
And moving away from my own culture, the way we do things, getting to other people, the way they worship God, when I see the difference, I get back into myself to think about what I was told and then how I shouldn't judge other cultures as not good.
Mm-hmm.
So that always gives me that courage to be able to stand the culture no matter how it is because it serves the people.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of just your own personal faith, is there a kind of particular saint or saints or a scripture passage that kind of defines your vocation or inspires you in a sense?
The more you grow in faith, the more you establish some kind of how you want it to be. And I know I've read the lives of saints, but at the same time, I try to focus more on the words of Jesus. So I try to see Jesus as a model because sometimes when I want to do something, I do ask myself, if Jesus is here, how is he going to react to this? So that makes me to look onto Jesus himself rather than any other person.
Yeah.
So Jesus is always my point of reference.
One of the things that you'd mentioned, I think, previously in speaking to you, is being influenced by the Gospel of Matthew, in particular 25:14 to 30. What is it about that particular scripture passage, that the parable of the talents, that you find inspiring?
When you look at that passage about the talents, it goes back to the same thing I've talked about vocation, that every person has been given a vocation, and whatever you are doing to serve God is a vocation and is a mission. So the fact that this person is a priest, he's given a talent. The fact that that person is a married person, he or she is given a talent. The fact that the other person is a medical doctor, and so on and so forth. So the most important thing is wherever you find yourself, try to be productive in terms of what you are supposed to do. Because as long as you are doing it right, you are using your talent and producing good fruit for the society and for God himself.
Spot on. So if we go back a wee bit and start from your time in the seminary, your ordination, and the places that you've been, can you just take us through that? Take us through when did you start in the seminary? When were you ordained, and where did you go after that?
All right. I know that I went through junior seminary, though I did not finish, but I will start from where I got into the postulancy and then novitiate. My postulancy was in 1995. Then novitiate 96 to 97. Then I went to philosophy and then did 4 years, which took me to the year 2000. Then I did 1 year apostolic work. Then after that 1 year apostolic work, I went back to school to do theology, and which I did for 4 years. And after that 4 years, I got ordained in 2006. Yeah.
Okay. And after you were ordained, were you posted anywhere straight away, or were you in Nigeria for a wee bit?
After my ordination in 2006, though by then I've known already that I'll be going to South Africa for a missionary experience. Due to visa issues, I spent 3 years in Nigeria, which was okay for me to really adjust to new assignment as a priest. And then after that, I left Nigeria in 2009 to South Africa and worked there until 2017.
Okay, so quite a long time. So What was life as a missionary like in South Africa? What sort of things did you have to do? Or things that you had to put in place, or things that you found challenging?
Um, each culture and each society have a way of worshiping God, and which is right in their own context. When I got to South Africa, I was posted into a parish to assist for some time, and South Africa, being as it was then, I don't know at the moment whether things have greatly changed. There's a division between the rich and the poor, the black and the white people. The white people stay in the city and they have their mass in the city. Then in the village is where you have the black majority. And that gives you a kind of two world in which you as a priest have to stand at the center to minister to. In the town parish, whereby you see the majority of the rich and the white, their mass used to be very, very brief. And when you go to the local church, the village one, is more of a typical African mass whereby people will dance and sing all through the mass, and you can spend up to 1 hour 30 minutes, and people are still comfortable and happy in the mass. So each time I have to prepare the kind of homily I'm going to deliver, because the two different worlds have two different issues bothering them, and I have to balance that. So that was like some kind of a lesson for me in life, because I never experienced such. Where I came from, everybody unites in one church and there's no division or anything. But here, it was, because I remember one time I came for a baptism, and as a priest, it was in the town. People were already in front. I now sat almost in the middle of the church. And to my surprise, it became like everybody avoided me, and I divided the church. Because from where I was sitting, those who came late never came up. And this is issue of not mixing up, So it was like a shock to me, but I took it as part of life, and then I have to manage it. Yeah.
Yeah. What was so that was your kind of, I guess, your first impression of life in the missions. What was that like? What was your overall first impression when you got there?
Challenging, in the sense that I have to deal with two worlds.
Yeah.
The world of the black, I can really understand very much, because where I come from, mass is like celebration, dancing with music, playing drums, and so on and so forth. It was okay. But the other side is where I had to really adjust myself seriously, because you have to be as brief as possible, because when you waste a little bit of time, somebody will be at the back to give you sign in his or her wristwatch that it's time.
Right.
So that was a shock to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So after South Africa, did you come straight to Scotland?
Yes. When I left South Africa in 2017, I went to. Actually, I left South Africa January 2018. Went home, spent some few days, and then flew to UK, and then finally I was posted to Scotland. Yes.
And so where have you, obviously we're in St Sophia's right now in Galston, but where else have you been?
I've been to Caffeine. We have a Spiritan community in Caffeine where I spent a month plus before going to Cathedral at Air, and spent 6 months there. Then after 6 months I arrived here.
And so how have you found, what was your first impression of Scotland?
The first impression of Scotland is Scotland is a very cold place, especially during the winter.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the people of Scotland are very warm in receiving someone. They are kind. So that's how I see it.
Yeah. Just in terms of both your time so far in South Africa and Scotland, have you got any kind of standout stories or memories so far that you could share with us?
Maybe the story have at the moment, especially when I look back at my journey in South Africa, was I was able to, well, not that I did, but with the help of people, were able to build a church where there was no church. The people were using somebody's car garage, which was not okay, and then I encouraged them through their help. We were able to. They had a land which has not been developed. Then I was able to encourage them, and then we sourced for fund. And before I left South Africa, we had a very good church built. Though church cannot be 100% completed at any time, but at least it was serving the people before I left because it was structurally finished. So when I look back to that, I mean, it gives me some fulfillment that the people have got something from somebody who came from far place to help them.
And if you can explain that to us a wee bit, because obviously there's not a lot of new churches that get built in Scotland. What does a new church do for people who have previously just had a wee kind of outstation? How do they feel? How do they receive it?
It was for them some kind of an impossibility thing that made possible, because they were it was a very poor community, and the people at the point when we couldn't use somebody's garage, we had to buy tent, and when it rains, I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah.
So now when I encouraged them and began to make contacts, and finally they saw church developing, it was like breathing a great sigh of relief for them that something they thought impossible is becoming possible. And it was, I mean, so joyful a moment the time they saw a roof on the church and everything was complete. Yeah.
And in a lot of places throughout the world, the church kind of acts as a catalyst for other things to get built. Would that be correct?
Yeah, because in that, our plan then was that when the church stand, we can also develop some kind of a small nursery school where people can attend, at least to get the basics of life. Yes.
Yeah, so it helps to
open
grow
up
the faith and grow the church and everything else.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. We need to talk a wee bit about St Sophia's, because it is probably one of my favourite churches in Scotland, and it's very, very unique. When you first arrived here, were you aware of its uniqueness?
Before arriving here, I never heard any about the church. It was only when I was at the cathedral that the bishop told me about the place and that I'll be coming there. Then finally, I arrived. To my greatest surprise, it's actually a very unique church. I've never seen a church like that. And I began to work with the people, and the people are also very nice. And since then, it has been a good experience in terms of faith journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very beautiful church, but obviously is probably in need of repairs. Can you tell us a wee bit about that?
Yeah, the church has its challenge, because even when I came newly, the bishop was showing me the challenges of the church, whereby at the left wing of the church, there's a lot of dampness and a lot of, it's really, it looks so bad. But we began to think of what can we do. We invited people to come, and they looked at it. They began to do some little touches to the problem, but it's such a massive problem that the community cannot really do it by themselves. So at the moment, we are getting some specialists to look at the church, look at the problems, identify what actually are the major issues, and then from there, we can begin to think of asking for grant, which may help us to repair the church, because it's a church that shouldn't be left to decay.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It is really unique. Just on a kind of personal level, what are some of the things that you miss about Nigeria, and what are some of the things you've obviously mentioned about the people being very warm, but what are some of the things you like about being in your adopted home here in Scotland?
I miss every good thing in Nigeria because there are a lot of good things, but the issue is when I allowed myself to join the Spiritans, I know that I'm not going to be in Nigeria, or even if I'm going to be in Nigeria, I'm not going to be around my locality, because as a missionary, you go anywhere. So, bearing that in mind, I just made up my mind that whatever I miss in Nigeria, I should be able to gain again wherever I find myself. And part of that which I miss in Nigeria is good people. I miss good people in Nigeria, but here also, I'm able to find good people again. So that which I miss in Nigeria, I'm also gaining here, because we are talking about human beings. As much as I get the good ones in Nigeria, there are also very good ones here in Scotland. So,
Excellent. I guess that this kind of question flows into that. I guess a wee bit about what's the positives about being a missionary, and what are maybe some of the negatives, if there are any.
the positives are about being missionary. I think it opens you to more knowledge about the world and the society, and also different cultures. And that knowledge is a wealth that you can't really get unless you move out of your comfort. So, and if you are to unravel that, it's a very big package that is so great that you cannot quantify. Um, the negative part of it, I'm not really 100% sure if I've been able to identify the negative part. I only focus on the positive part of it, which is
Yeah.
the great things that happen when you leave your comfort zone to go for missionary and experience other people. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in terms the term mission itself, what does the term mission mean to you?
For me, mission means reaching out as Jesus did send the 72. Go out into the world and proclaim the good news. So, as a missionary, the most important thing that we can give is to proclaim the good news
Yeah.
to the people.
In terms of, you spoke about earlier on everyone kind of having a mission. What do you think is the best way that lay people can be missionaries and live out their mission?
As I said from the beginning, God has given each person a talent, and wherever you find yourself, you should be able to utilize that talent. And that talent that you have, and you are utilizing that, is mission. But if you are trying to corner me on the level of the church, in terms of the laity being missionaries, yes, a lot of laities are gifted with different gifts. Some of them are good teachers, they can teach in the church. Some of them are good helpers, they can help within the church to make sure that church is moving well. So there are a lot of good things that people can do, which also, when you add them together, they form the big picture of the mission of Christ in the world.
Yes. In terms of the situation for the Spiritans worldwide, what's the current state of play in terms of numbers and things like that?
At the moment, I know we are having a good number of young people coming up to become missionaries, especially in Africa. I talk of Africa because I come from Africa. So the number is still increasing in Africa, those who wish to become missionary. But I know in Europe is a little bit is challenging because we don't see young people again coming up to take part in that missionary work as religious.
Yeah. The church here in Scotland and the church in Nigeria or South Africa, how does it differ? How does the church here in Scotland differ from the church in Africa, do you think?
The difference could be on the area of number. In Africa, the churches are packed with lots of people, both young and old, and everybody taking part in the activity of the church. But if you compare it to Scotland, the difference is just very glaring, because here we do not have so much number compared to what we have in Africa. And again, here in Scotland, where I am at the moment, I would say that we don't have much of the youths taking part in the church's life. And if I think of where I am, it could also be applicable to other places. So the number of people in the church is dwindling in Scotland, but in Africa, especially where I come from, is growing, is blooming. Then another difference is in Africa, we are still building structures. Just as I told you about the time I helped in building a church in South Africa. But here in Scotland, the structure is already existing. So people are no longer thinking of building new churches. That's what I feel. I don't know how true it is, but that's my feeling, that people are no longer thinking of building new churches because the structures are already there in place. But in Africa, we are still building structures because the number of people are increasing, and therefore the demand for space is also increasing. And we talk of different churches coming up every day.
So, Father Gabriel, as well as, being the parish priest here at St Sophia's, you are also the Diocesan Director for Missio Scotland, the Pontifical Mission Societies. Now, when you were both in Nigeria and in South Africa, how much did you know about the Pontifical Mission Societies?
To be honest, I didn't know much about that. Only that I think once in a year there is a special collection for that, but the details I did not know until when I arrived Scotland, and through the bishop who encouraged me to take part in the Missio, I began to see the picture of Missio. So when I was in Africa, I didn't know much about Missio.
So yeah, but now obviously you've got a wee bit of a better understanding, and to that point, why is it important for Catholics to support the work of Missio Scotland and the Pontifical Mission Societies? What makes it special?
I think part of what I feel that makes it special is that Missio focuses attention so much on the primary school. And if they focus attention on primary school and able to help the primary school, which means they will be able to sow the seed of faith in the young and also help them to understand their faith. And when they understand that, when they grow up into adults, they will be able to do more for the mission of the church.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, ending a wee bit of a light-hearted note, I did a wee bit of research into you and found that you like tennis and at football as well. So if we talk about tennis a wee bit first, did you have like a favourite player when you were younger? Was there anybody that you really liked watching?
When I was younger, I didn't have much. I didn't watch tennis much because the facilities were not there. Though in school, I did play with some of my lecturers, and that's where I developed the interest. It was only actually when I came to Scotland that I began to watch more of tennis. And if you ask me my favorite at the moment, I will tell you that Djokovic remains my favorite. Yes.
Yeah.
Even though I know that, yeah.
And, in terms of football, like even, people all throughout the world know how good a pedigree like Nigeria has as a football team, and some of the players that they've produced, like Amokachi and Akocha and lots of different players. Just how big is like football in Nigeria itself?
Football is, you can find football all over Nigeria, both in streets, in schools, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So it's like a known common game that everybody play. Because little children can just gather in a little space and they play the football. That's how It is. So everybody, I would say, many people know about football and they have interest in football.
Do you have any like favourite kind of all-time favourite players that played for Nigeria? Because there's been so many really good ones, and I think everybody remembers, like especially the team in the 1994 World Cup and just how brilliant they were and how exciting and colourful and stuff. Is there any players that stick out in your memory in particular?
Yeah, I think the player that I so much admire is JJ Okocha. Yeah, he's a good player. Each time I see him play, I mean, he has something to deliver at any given moment. Yeah, so I admire him.
Well, unfortunately as well, like Nigeria are not at the World Cup this year, but is there any, stick your neck in the line here, who do you think will win the World Cup?
That's a very tough question. I think I need to think very, very well before I get to that answer.
Yeah, no bother. Father Gabriel, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us, and God bless.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Missio Scotland is the Scottish branch of the Pontifical Mission Societies, the Pope's official charity for overseas mission. To learn more about the work of Missio Scotland, you can visit our website www.missioscotland.com. You can like us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Missio Scotland. You can also follow us on Twitter, Missio_Scotland, and on Instagram, Missio Scotland. If you would like to donate to Missio Scotland, visit www.missioscotland.com/donate. You can also call us on 01236 449 774 or send donations to Missio Scotland, 4 Laird Street, Coatbridge, ML5 3LJ. Please keep us in your prayers. Thank you and God bless.